I'm so happy to see everyone. That's the worst cocktail ever. Oh my God. Welcome everyone. I'm so glad to be with you. This is a book launch, but I wanted to make it a book party too. So if I don't know you, welcome to the family, because this is a party too. And so I wanted to start by making a toast. First of all, thanks to the Strand for hosting us. It's a wonderful store. I'm so glad to be in it. I want everyone to buy books and spend money at the Strand, but I do have a request. Please don't sell my book back to the Strand. It will make me feel really bad if I see a signed edition that you sold back. And this, I was thinking of saying this, and then I remembered that near the end of her life, my mom said that she got the idea that she wanted to sell all the books I had signed to her and sell them on eBay. So I said, you know, Mom, who wants books signed to someone's mother? She goes, they're first editions. But luckily for me, she couldn't do it because she didn't know how to use eBay. So that was, because you see your own book signed to your mother. That would be embarrassing. Anyway, thanks to Phil Schultz, my dear friend and brother. He came from Rochester. I came from the north side of Chicago. We met in New York and just became friends for life. And I asked him to have this conversation together, and he said it was genius to choose him. So yeah, I think it was. Thanks to my agent, Liz Darensoff, who was the first one to see what I was up to and got me to focus. She said she identified with my childhood, which made me worry for her, but she's come through really, really well. Thanks to my editor, Deborah Garrison, she was the first one to see that my stand-up comedy is also an elegy for a lost time and place, a world that's gone. Thanks to the entire team at Knopf, Jordan Rodman and Noah Hoff. Just been really great to work with. Zulema Ugaldi, Deb's literary assistant, is so literary and wonderful to work with too. Wittiest cover ever on the book. I don't know if you've seen it. It's just so clever. You just want to drive into the book and put one of those sound things in the window and order popcorn and see what's on the show. So thanks to all of you. I have so many friends here, including almost the entire staff of the Guggenheim, my other family. So yeah, I'm so glad you're here. There were a few years where I'd think of things at night and people would come into my office and I'd say, what do you think of this? They go, we're trying to work on something here. What do you think? Think this is funny? And then sometimes they look puzzled. They go, okay, that's criticism. Sometimes they laugh. They laugh, I'm in. And so that's how it kind of worked. Also, all my friends in my life call me on the phone and go, what do you think of this? My wonderful neuroscientist, Sheila, is here working on blindness. She's giving me eye tests. I go, hey, Sheila, what do you think of this? Think this is funny? My trainer, Alex, she's here. She's like trying to get me to do squats. I go, hey, Alex, do you think this is funny? Like, well, what do you think of this? She goes, heavier weights, you know, like that. I go into Chopped, the manager of Chopped, where I buy my salad, Yahara. She's a friend. I go, hey, Yahara, think this is funny? What do you think? She goes, I'm trying to sell. We got a line of 200 people here. I go, yeah, but is it funny? So it's like that. So, and then that's how it's been. It takes a village, and I'm really, really lucky to have one. And then finally, my great love, Lori Wattell. Lori's very skeptical of the way that I improve my stories. But I really count on her honesty. There are two genres recurring in the history of literature, tragedy and comedy. My summary is that tragedies end badly, comedies end well. Lori and I had a long courtship, but it ended well, as a comedy should, and we got married. So here's to everyone, thank you.
You've already been introduced, so we don't have to go through all the really important stuff is this book. As a dyslexic, I seldom finish books. I'm admitting that. But look at, I've read this 3 times. And I think for one reason, I mean, the humor is so, the wit is so poetic. I mean, only a poet could come up with this style. And I know you're going to tell us how you discovered this. But this is such a Jewish story that it's also an immigrant story, and therefore it's an American story. It's my story. It's a story of almost everyone I know and love. There's a place of genius in people, and you found it in yourself, and you've made a home there, and you managed to stay there throughout the writing of this entire book. The humor is all a matter of celebration and praise. You know, also, I think it was Frost who said that all poetry is elegy. There's a wonderful, very moving, beautiful elegy for a time lost and a time really that we need almost to go back to, that you recreated for us. This is my story in a way that I can't remember feeling that way in reading a book. Now, let's begin with, you know, I'm not going to ask you. We decided on a number of things he could read, and obviously I've gone to town. I went crazy. But let's begin with how in the world did you discover this method of writing in these pieces? Where did this come from?
First, maybe you should just explain what it is, like how each one works. Or do you want me to do that?
Well, I can certainly do that. They're all in pieces. You know, literally pieces. 2 lines, 6 lines, 7 lines. They almost always end with a joke. They're written rhythmically, poetically, and they're always hysterically funny. Now, who writes a memoir like that? Where did that come from?
Honestly, I thought it was really touching but funny that you said it. Only a poet could do this, because I got the idea from writing down what my family said, and they weren't poets, but they were. My family was very funny and very harsh, and literally, I don't know why. I guess this first started in the pandemic, and then I started carrying over in New York. My parents are dead now, and I just started writing down things they said. And the very first thing, which is funny to me, in a review someone called this an ars poetica. It was the very first thing I wrote in the book, and I'll tell you what it is. I said to my mother, you know, you really shouldn't make fun of me, you're my mother. And she said, don't be so sure, kid. Okay, that's it. And then I thought of something my father said. My father, Ruby, what's a co-signer? A schmuck with a pen. It was just literally writing down. Like we said to our father, he wasn't much of a father. We go, well, my sister Leni and I go, we're bored. What should we do? And he goes, why don't you go play on Eden's Highway? We go, well, it's too far away. He goes, I'll drive you. Okay, and then he goes, no, come think of it. Go hit your head against the wall. We go, really? He goes, yeah, don't do that. You'll hurt the wall. So I just was like writing down these things. And then I structured them. They seemed to me, they had the structure of jokes. They're like things they said, but if you just, they didn't give it a title and they didn't give it a setup. I thought, if I give it a title, like Conversation with My Mother, and then I say my mother's, and then I give it a setup, like my mother's stirring a pot of chicken soup at the stove. I said to her, you know, you really shouldn't make fun of me, you're my mother. She barely turned her head. Don't be so sure, kid. I've got a little piece. And I just kept doing this. And then really what happened is Andre Bernard came into my office one day and I said, what do you think of this? He goes, these are really funny. This should be your next book. It hadn't even occurred to me. And so I started seeing if I could channel this same structure and write pieces. And I began then by writing sometimes just jokes, thinking of jokes like this, and then I moved it into anecdotes. Like an anecdote would be, a girl, Roberta, was gonna hit my sister Leni over the head with a broom handle, and I stepped forward to stop this from happening. And then Roberta hit me with the broom. and I had crashed my skull, and my head was bleeding, and I ran home screaming, my brains are falling out, my brains are falling out. And so my mother was divorced, my grandmother was taking care of us, and so my grandmother was imperturbable. She took Leanie and me by the hand. She went outside and got a cab. Cab came over. We're getting in the cab. My grandmother said, you don't have the brains you're born with. I don't see how anything can start falling out now. So like, that's the same structure with an anecdote. And then I thought of, another story that my grandmother said, which is I called it Brainchild. My grandmother said, if we had a brain sale, I'd charge the most for yours. I go, why? Because I'm the smartest one in the family? No, because yours have never been used. So this is it. I'm just like writing these down, and I go, my family's gold. My family's gold. And sometimes they're fun. I mean, that's intentional. Sometimes they're intentionally funny, but they're really harsh. And somehow by channeling this thing, it brought back my childhood. And things kept coming back to me. And I kept doing this at very tight style, really focused, like just little, as short as possible, anecdote. Then I got the idea of having a title to everyone, a setup and a turn. And somehow I backed into the traumas. By having this structure, I could tell stories that no longer were funny, but still had the same structure, still had the same turn. And as you know, that's a poetry move, like what the Italians call volta. It's got the turn. You have the move, and then you have the turn. And the turn, and so basically my process of writing, if you could call it that, was thinking of what happened and then thinking of the turn. I have my sister Leanie went through psychoanalysis, so that's very good for writing a memoir. She remembers everything, but she doesn't think anything is funny. But we have the same sense of humor, but she didn't think it's funny. So she'd say, do you remember this? And then I go, yeah. And she goes, yeah, but I didn't remember that exactly. Do you remember this? She goes, you can't make that funny. So an example was my sister was in bed for a year. At the end, she got interested in the nurses who took care of her, and so she said to my mom, I think I want to become a nurse. And my mom said, Jewish girls can't become nurses. So my sister goes, that's just cruel. That's not funny. I go, give me 15 minutes. So I go like, okay, it's true. She says, Jewish girls can't become nurses. And then I said, poor Deborah, wet nurse of Jacob. If we're up to my mom, she never would have made it into Genesis. My sister said, well, that's pretty good, actually. That's pretty good. So that's how it just unfolded that way. And I got more and more excited as it just kept coming back to me. And this style, well, you know how this is with writing, that the opening of the style enabled me to touch things that I'd never been able to write about before. That it just opened up my childhood for me. The tones I think that I had established in poetry were too high for the world I was trying to write about. And somehow this style gave me back the people. I would say that for a memoir, my book is not very inward. It's really focused on the people and describing them and giving you the sense, because most memoirs are very reflective and like there's a look back from the past to the present and see what you've learned. Yeah, no, that's not, you don't learn much that way in this book, but what you do get is thrust back into the past in a kind of Jewish Proustian way, and you're catapulted back to this whole group of people and what they were like and what the world around them was like. And so that's what I think is the elegy part, because it's completely gone now. But it just took you back, and I just wanted to bring you that alive, piece by piece, scene by scene, so that that whole world comes, rushing back to you.
Well, let me ask you, because I thought of this a number of times. I mean, Borscht Belt humor, Jewish humor, Mel Brooks and Milton Berle and all of that is based on pain. The Jewish experience was humor was a survival mechanism. It was a way of surviving things that you didn't know how to survive any other way. So for you to do this takes real courage. And what did you do with the pain? That had to be called up on many occasions.
Well, as I said, I backed into it. I backed into the traumas, and then some of it is not very funny. My parents went to war against each other, basically, and kids were pawns. They didn't really think of us as people. And so I just sort of, this way, just moved into this story. But then some of it still seemed funny to me. Like my sister and I had to get a psychological evaluation. So we went to a psychiatrist, and for a court case, we went to a psychiatrist in Evanston, and the psychiatrist gave us his evaluation. So in the book I write, my mom told us that she heard from the psychologist, and he said that we were completely normal. And I said she could get us to accept some real whoppers. But even we knew that couldn't possibly be true. So I sort of backed into that. It still keeps the same structure, but as you know, in that section, most of it is not very funny. But it was my way of finally processing, I guess, and finally dealing with it.
It's all here, though. The whole world, that whole immigrant world, that whole American world, that wanting to strive to become part of things.
I think there are two generations. There's my grandparents and they're immigrants. Well, my grandfather was from Latvia, but my grandmother was from the United States, and she always thought she was better than my grandfather because it was more impressive to be born in the United States than it was to be born in Latvia, which is a little questionable as a judgment, but okay. They were separate. They didn't think of themselves as integrated into American society. And my mother was very distraught about my grandfather. She always said he never learned how to be an American in America. And as a result, he was doomed to kind of poverty. And she was very worried about this for me. But then the world of my parents were really assimilated. I mean, they were just like they were hustling hard to make it in the middle class, really a hard hustle. And then we kind of, inherited that world from those two generations because of my parents' divorce. When I was 2, my grandmother and my grandfather raised us a lot. And so we got a lot from them, and then we got a lot from our parents. So I think that 2 generations, we inherited both that immigrant sensibility of being separate and then my parents' sense of being the hustle. And I have a piece about this, the comment about this when I'm writing about our move to the suburbs. And the Holocaust survivors, in Skokie where we moved, 58% of the population was Jewish, and there were about 7,500 Holocaust survivors. And on the census, the Holocaust survivors did not know what to check, so they checked other. But my parents were very clear, they checked white. And so this is the story of these two generations living right together like that. It's an assimilation story and what you inherit then from that.
That's so moving. The book just came out, so people may not have had a chance. There's this, I already asked you to read it to me, but on page 172, the Hebrew lesson.
You tell it.
Okay, well, you're going to have to help me with that.
Elimelech.
Elimelech, okay. My Hebrew name, Elimelech, means God is king. My family thought it was royal. It took me 25 years to discover it is not. When I mentioned it to the folklorist Dan Ben-Amas, he burst out laughing. In Israel, it's the shtetl name, he explained. You might as well call yourself Shlemiel. Not every writer is capable of talking that way about himself.
That's just literally happened, but it's so funny. It tells you something, because my parents knew so little that they thought this Yiddish name, Elimelech, was really a grand name because it means God is king. But someone who actually knew Hebrew and Yiddish go, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. What? Just call yourself a schmuck. That's like, no, don't do it. Yeah.
I fell off a chair.
It's funny, but puzzling.
I have to say, at a time like this, we all know what we're going through. To have a source of an oasis, a refuge, where you could go to and live in a different world that you've created. You've created, when we write, we all try to create worlds, but you've actually succeeded in creating a world that is both familiar and stunningly original. And
this is what I wanted. I'm so moved that you're saying this, because I wanted to bring these people back to life. I wanted people to remember them, and I wanted people to know what it was like, because these characters are all gone now. But my parents started going together in 7th grade, and they had a tight crowd, and my mom made us call all of them uncle and aunt. So I had a lot of fake relatives of uncles and aunts. I grew up with them my whole life, and they're all gone now, but in my memory they're enshrined at about 40 when I left for college. And I just wanted to capture what these people were like my Uncle Snooky. My Uncle Snooky, who always said he held and changed my diapers. He liked to say this when he saw me with my high school dates. And he held me at my bris and he changed my diapers. He liked to say this. He said it at my bar mitzvah. I was talking to a girl and he said, "I used to change your diapers." And she said, "How long ago was that?" that was tough. That was tough. So Uncle Snooky, who was in the mercantile exchange, was always up or down in the market. He was usually very down, but he always pretended he was up. And he told us to stop calling him Uncle Snooky and we should start calling him Uncle Maury. And then he started dressing snazzier, and he said we should start calling him Uncle Murray. And then he started looking younger and playing racquetball, and he said we shouldn't call him Uncle at all. But we just kept calling him Uncle Snooky. So that's sort of.
Can I read one quick one that's maybe one of my favorites? Celebratory dinner. Whenever I got laryngitis, my mom served steak to celebrate the fact that I couldn't talk. That was tough to swallow.
Yeah, so that's the part is the serving steak was my mom's sense of humor. That was true. My mom just said, "Okay, you can't speak. We're going to serve steak for dinner. Let's celebrate." That's just funny, but that was her joke. But then that was tough to swallow because my mom was such a bad cook. So it was like really good on the pun for that. And then I had the same sort of joke I called it back alley. It's the same thing, sort of thing. It's back alley anti-Semitism. The insult flew over my head. Someone called me a kite. So someone did call me a kite, and I didn't know what it meant. So all I had to add here was the insult flew over my head. That's sort of what I was doing. I mean, what I was doing was channeling what happened and then seeing how it turned in my mind. Like I remember one night I got very excited. I was lying in bed. I was born on January 20th. So that's Inauguration Day. And I realized I could structure the book every 4 years. You'd know where you were. Because the book is chronological, but it's like always, how do you know? One thing about the book that I wanted was you knew exactly how old the person was in the book every step of the way. And then the jokes mean more because they're located in time and place. So I realized, well, every 4 years, there was an Inauguration Day. And so I had one. So then the first one was when I was 3, the second one was when I was 7, then 11 and 15. So I could just handle all of those. So the first one was Eisenhower was elected president. And everyone chanted, "I like Ike, we love Ike." I go, my grandfather didn't like Ike. He liked Adlai Stevenson instead. So I chanted, "We don't like Ike, we don't like Ike." Oh, sorry, Dwight. He's named after Dwight Lee Eisenhower. Whoops. Yeah. Or then I thought, when I was 15, LBJ was inaugurated. And everyone chanted "all the way" with LBJ. I was 15. I thought "all the way" meant something else. And then I had another one when I was 13, which was, "Ask not what your birthday party can do for you. Ask what you can do for your birthday party." So I just like this, so I just kept finding ways to structure it. Like, it's 1958, it's the year of Whammo. I was too young for the bunny hop, right on time for the hula hoop. You know exactly where you are in time, and that gives you a lot. You don't have to do much then. You nail it down in time, and then you turn it.
Well, you know, the idea of pun making is very close to the poetic process. You're playing off of words, meanings, differences, and that is where inspiration comes, because this one idea echoes another one, and it takes you to a different place.
That's
and
true.
That's what you're doing throughout this book.
That's true. The linguistic play leads you to things, and the stories lead you to things, and so the question is, how do you turn it? And I think psychologically that was a way for me to turn the trauma, which is the Jewish humor way, the way to back it, turn it, twist it so that it seemed funny and therefore palatable. And then sometimes I just couldn't do it.
Let me ask you an impossible question, but why not? Why do you think no one's ever done this before? I mean, all the comics, all the different kinds of writers, and all the different kinds of backgrounds. There's nothing like this.
You know, I can't actually, that they're dumb cuffs. I honestly, I don't know, but I have to say, I was wildly excited when I realized that it kept opening up for me, and that I also thought no one had done this. I don't think it's automatically clear that you could, because you'd think that the style might get tiring, or if it's all jokes, many of my friends who are reading it now say that the way I represented it is different than the experience of reading it. And the thing I'm telling you now is a little different than the experience of reading it, I think, because a lot of them are not meant to be laugh out loud jokes. I just highlight those.
You cry a lot.
Yeah, and also, I'm hoping that they get to be addictive when I made it, because they build to a story. And I think that maybe it's not intuitive that this would work, but that the story kept opening up for me, and I kept getting more and more excited. And I think it played to my strength, a certain kind of wit that I have. It seemed to open it up for me. The joke that's both funny and sad. I'll give you an example of what I think is my strength working on this. My father, Ruby, took us to meet he told us he was meeting, I was 8, my sister was 7, I guess. And he told us that he wanted us to meet his new wife, Pat. So we went to meet Pat, and then we came home and said, "Hey, Mom, we met Ruby's new wife." And she said, it's not his wife, that's a prostitute. So we go, "Well, what's a prostitute?" She goes, "A prostitute is someone your dad pays to touch him." And then she picked up the phone. So, okay, so the next thing, I go to the playground. "Hey, everyone, what's a prostitute?" No one knew. "That's a woman my dad pays to do stuff to him." It's like, so that plays, you see what I mean? It's like you turn it, it plays to my strength in terms of like, it's horribly funny, it's sort of painful, it's like impossible. Yeah, that's what it kept opening it back to their antics and what we were trying to do, what we're trying to deal with them. Because, well, as I say, both of my parents were smokers. They thought filters were for cigarettes. They just told us all this stuff. The one piece that my sister likes the most in this is called Just a Suggestion. The suggestion is, maybe you should wait until your children are teenagers before trashing the sexual proclivities of your ex-wife and ex-husband. So she likes that the most because it's the most judgmental. So I don't really know why. I think it's because it doesn't seem intuitive that you could build a larger narrative of this structure. But I saw that by turning them, they obviously have to be lively enough and energetic enough, but they do build a story. They do build a narrative, and I think that's what gets you from one to the next. Also, if you don't like one, you're on to another one right away. They go fast. So I'm sure not all the jokes are going to land for everyone, and not every piece lands, but it does get you to the next part of the story.
Well, I felt something that I always want to feel and don't as often as I like, and that's a sense of gratitude, because I needed to be made to feel the way you were making me feel throughout this. I think the term is inner vision.
Thanks for saying that. I took this strategy, and then it just kept, like, I like the prologue, which is using the same strategy. You'll hear how it works. My grandparents taught me to write my sins on paper during the first day of the new year. They didn't expect an entire book. So that's the structure. Literally, they told us, we used to write our sins on paper and then throw them into the water. And then I just thought, well, that could be a good prologue. And then I'll give away the epilogue, too. The epilogue is, Czesław Miłosz says that when a writer is born into a family, the family is finished. Yeah. So.
Did you want to read some more, or
I don't know.
I
I'm
guess
reading a lot
we're
right here.
doing fine. Yeah.
I'll tell you the very first piece in the book that sort of sets it up after the prologue. It's called "All Sales Are Final." God is like my old boss on Maxwell Street. My grandfather said, "You may get home and discover that your new shirt doesn't have a back, but you're still not going to get a refund." There's also the one I think you like, his parable called Homegrown. I call it Homegrown Theology. My grandfather held up a can of tomatoes. He said, "What's the difference between this can of tomatoes and God?" So I said, "God is fresh and not canned?" He said, "No, God does not have an expiration date." That's the turn. That's the turn. So, yeah, I was able to capture the people, or sort of what they were like, by what they said. So, I like this one. This is from my sister. We were in French class together, and she was sitting she's a year younger than I am. So I was sitting here, and then there was a girl named Joyce Glick sitting behind me, and then my sister was there. And our friend Leif from elementary school had an atrocious French accent. And every time he would say something in French, I would give a look at my sister. I'd turn around and look at my sister. So Joyce Glick, well, I added this. Joyce Glick was a good detective. She turned to my sister Leanie and said, "Are you dating Ed Hirsch?" And my sister said, "Actually, we live together." That was really good. I thought that was.
There's a lot of stuff about dating and first love and exploration and all the sexual stuff. It's hysterical.
Yeah, there's a lot of high school romance. I told my sister about the book, the cover, about the drive-in movie, and she remembered that when she went to a drive-in movie with a date, her date got very frisky, and so she climbed out the window. And then later she realized she could have just opened the door. And then she went home and she felt really bad. She felt really bad because she had left her popcorn. She didn't take her popcorn. She left it in the car. Yeah. There's a lot about her dating. There's a lot about her dating too.
Separation anxiety. My parents separated when I was 2 years old. I don't remember living with my natural father, but my mom told me that when he moved out of the apartment, I broke into a rash all over my body. It lasted for days. He never came home. I never got over my allergies.
Yeah, well, that's true. Do you have the one there about all the allergies? A few allergies?
In the same section?
Yeah.
These turn?
No, Leanie went for quantity. It's a little further along. I think it's towards the end of the chapter.
What's it? Oh, a bad cheater?
No, that's pretty good though.
Yes.
My Auntie B said that Ruby was a bad cheater because he was not good at keeping secrets. She also said she'd kill if anyone said anything bad about him. That's my mom's younger sister. Oh, I have to say what she said when I was born. my mom's younger sister was my Auntie B. She goes, I started to sob when I saw you in the nursery, Auntie B told me. I'd never seen such a strange-looking infant. You were emaciated. You had spiky hair. You were all eyes and nose, and your face trailed behind. You looked like you were born in an alley. And then the next one is family resemblance. All my life, people have said I look like B. So all I had to do there was, all I had to do there was put the two things together. I had the story from my Auntie B, which everyone knows. She told it over and over again, how she sobbed when she saw me. And then I had to just remember that people have always said I looked like my Auntie B, and I just had to put them together, and I had my joke. Yeah.
So it came all at once then?
Well, that did. I mean, I think that writing here was daydreaming and thinking, and then where to put it. And then that, you know, Robert Frost liked to say, how many things have to happen to you before something occurs to you? I had that story of my Auntie B, and then I just had to put family resemblance there. And then some I just made up, like, I like this one after I was bored. It's called, and God spoke, and God spoke. It was as if God spoke, my mom's name was Irma. It was as if God spoke to Irma in a dream. He said, you have a newborn son. He should become a doctor. But what if he's not good at science, Irma said. And God spoke again. He should become a tax attorney. But, you know, my mom wanted me to be a tax attorney. So that was, I just had to find a way to put it in.
Do you remember the one, unreliable narrators?
Yes, so this is a narrative problem, and I think it's interesting to anyone who writes a memoir. The first thing is, so I'm telling the story of how my parents broke up and how my mother found out that my father, Ruby, was cheating on her. And so my stepmother, his wife, she really wasn't my stepmother, but his wife, his second wife, Beverly, still alive, she told me the story of what happened. And then my sister Arlene told me the story of what happened. And Ruby had told Beverly, and my mom had told Leanie, and they're different stories. Like, I don't know what to do here. Like, no one, they are each swear totally that this is what happened. So I just put testimony according to Beverly Rubenstein, version recorded by Arlene Hirsch. So I'm not sure I have it exactly, but the gist of it is that Ruby went to New York. This is Beverly's testimony. Ruby went to New York. He was doing a side deal on scrap aluminum. He had a diaphragmatic hernia. He went to Mount Sinai Hospital. My mom heard about it. She flew to New York. She walked into his hospital room, and his girlfriend Ann was lying on the bed. That was the end of it. The next one, version recorded by Arlene Hirsch. The airline called to confirm the flight for Mr. and Mrs. Rubenstein. My mother knew something was up because she was at home. She flew to New York. She knew my father stayed at the Waldorf Astoria. She went to the Waldorf Astoria. She went to his room. He opened the door. His girlfriend Pat was lying on the bed. She turned around and walked out. That was the end of it. So, they're two different, he's cheating with two different women at the same time, but something happened. So then I put unreliable narrators. This is the thing you asked me to read. Everyone in this story is an unreliable narrator. Leanie and I were too young to know what was going on. The adults were crazed. They weren't even adults. And then the last thing in this chapter is all parties can agree. All parties can agree that Harold Rubenstein cheated on Irma Ginsburg Rubenstein. That was the end of it. And that's the way I handled it, and it seemed like the right way when something's indeterminate of the past, but something basic, fundamentally, has happened. And there are a lot of stories like that because my father had one version that he told to his wife, and my mother had another version that she told to us.
We're winding down, so I just want to get in. Eddie came to visit us once when our kids were small, two boys. And we started to play wiffle ball. I would throw, and Eddie was hitting. And he hit every single ball I pitched to him, even though I tried to strike him out, over the roof.
This is the high part of the night.
And I couldn't believe it. I mean, like, what's going on? And then I'm reading here all this football, baseball, everything except bowling.
Yeah, bowling no. Bowling no.
God, you really, what was that about? What did that family make you play? I mean, you went out. You went out for this, and that's a lot of time and hard work. You got it. There's whole sections about his relationship with coaches and what he learns from that.
When my mother remarried, first we met someone in the living room, and he shook her hand. He said, "Hi, I'm Kurt with a K." My mom well, this is funny, actually. This is just literally true. He was dating my mom, and I was a sleepwalker in those days, and I walked downstairs in my sleep, and I thought he was the urinal, and I pissed on him. And then we didn't, in my book I put, this part I added, this part was true, we didn't see him again for several months, and I wrote, "Mission accomplished." But then he was back again, and I did it again, but I didn't, this time I thought the closet was a bathroom, and I went and peed in the closet, and my mom steered me back to bed, and he didn't leave. Mission failure. So then my mom told us we should start calling him Uncle Kurt, and then my mom went and got married, and the way we found out that she'd gotten married is when she came back, she said we should call him Daddy Kurt. And then we started, so Ruby we called him Dad, then we called him Daddy Ruby, and then we called him Ruby. Kurt we called Kurt, then Uncle Kurt, then Daddy Kurt, then Dad. He became my father. So when he became my father, he thought I was too much of a mama's boy because I was crying all the time. And he decided to get me interested in sports. And I took to it. And so, although not fighting, this is really funny. My sister was, because she's reading the book, and so she's reading about my fights now. She remembers them, of course, and she goes, "One thing I didn't know, she used to run away whenever I was in a fight. She couldn't bear to see what was happening." She said, "You had a lot of spirit, but you really weren't up for the challenge." So yeah, I took to it, and I like the one, it's called "The Sorrow of Manly Sports." I cried into my eye black every time we lost a football game. Yeah, it's just true. Yeah, I just took to it. It must have been a way to turn something.
When I teach, I find I'm up against people feeling whether or not they're entitled to their feelings, to their opinions about other people and whatever. And what is so wholesome and rewarding about this is that the sense of entitlement behind theirs, in terms of your life and my life, feels so earned.
This is our story. I feel like I knew how all these people, and I knew how they felt about it. So, I mean, it didn't feel like an entitlement. It felt like a memory, and trying to bring them alive. I mean, the other option is let it go, and so they don't know how they are. And I just didn't want that to happen, and I found this way to try to bring them back to life. And I guess what I would say is there's a lot of harshness here, but I feel there's a lot of tenderness towards the people and the way they were, and compassion for how they were, what they were going through, and how they were managing, even though they themselves were so in the fight that it was hard for them to think of children as people.
Well, let's have a Q&A. I mean, if anyone has any questions.
If anyone has a question, just raise your hand. We have microphones. We'll bring them to
Wait.
you. I see you right here, my friend.
Thank you. This may be an odd question in a bookstore, but listening to the description of the uniqueness of this book, and I've opened it, I haven't read it, but I've seen the pages, it strikes me that it doesn't lend itself to an audiobook, and yet I know you've recorded one. So I wonder about how you think about that, and whether this really needs to be seen and read as opposed to listened to?
The people from Knopf will be escorting you out of the room. They'll be escorting you out of the room right now because, yeah, the Strand will give you one to read. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure why you concluded that because I think the audio. I mean, I haven't listened to it. I did record it. I thought it worked really well. Like it's got my voice. It's got my style. It's got my. I mean, you can hear it. I mean, the one thing that did happen during the recording is the engineer and the director are out there, and I'm in a booth, and sometimes they look at me and they go, "Are you crying?" And I'd be like that. I go, "No, I'm laughing at my own jokes. I'm really, really sorry." I had to get my. So I mean, you'll have to tell me about this, but it seems to me it works because it captures this is voice driven, and so it seems to me the turns capture the voice, but I can't really say myself. Oh.
I think it would be hysterically funny. I mean,
It feels like it to me.
because no one could read it the way you can.
Yeah, so I wanted to do it. It was demanding more than I quite expected, but I can't really answer that question.
We have
Any more?
another question in the very back over here.
Eddie, hi, it's Susan Morrow. I'm way in the back.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Eddie.
Nice to see you.
Well, I love it. I
Well,
love
not
it. Is
see
there?
you, but-
It's wonderful to be here. It's so full of joy. Is there any part of it that is really sad? I mean, that isn't funny in the book. That
There's a lot that's not very funny. We're sort of skirting this, but the trauma of my child, the center of my childhood is that when we moved from Chicago to Skokie and my mother remarried, our names had been Rubenstein, my first father's name, and my mother got remarried and she just changed our name to Hirsch. She said that our family was one family. It was better for a family to have one name. So we just did what she said. And we brought our report cards to Ruby because we were proud of our grades. And he said, "What's this?" And our name was changed. And the next thing, there was a lawsuit where Ruby sued my mother and us. And that's why we had the psychological evaluation. And then we went to court, and then the judge asked us what we wanted our name to be. And we had a lot of trouble deciding who to choose and what to choose. We didn't want to choose. And so the next thing we know, there was a ruling, and we're ushered out of the court. And our Ruby drove us back to the house. And he said that he had lost the case and that we had betrayed him and we weren't his children anymore and that he never wanted to see us again, that we were dead to him. And then we cried, "If you don't want to see us again, we don't want to see you again either." And we were 10 years old. And so he went to his wife and he said, "Can you believe it? They said they don't want to see me again anymore." She goes, "Whoa, her mother has just totally betrayed you on that." And so they moved to California, and he was out of my life. And then my mom said that Kurt had adopted us, and that we were one family, and our name was Hirsch. And then the coda to this, I'm really bringing the room down here. No, okay, yeah. So what? Okay. So the coda to this is that, so I thought Ruby had lost the case and our name was changed. And then two things happened. Lori and I went to meet Beverly, and we were sitting with Beverly and we're having dinner, and she mentions that really Ruby didn't lose the court case, that the judge had asked him to withdraw the case because the kids were so completely screwed up. And so he withdrew the case, but he felt really mad about it. So he wanted us to believe it was our fault. And then the other thing that he didn't tell us was that he was in the scrap metal business and he had bet crazily on the copper market. And he had lost, so he went broke. So he was really moving because he needed a new start in California. So then one more thing. This was happened when I'm in my 60s. Leanie and I find out that he had withdrawn the case. And then Lori and I took my mother, had dementia. My mother wanted to go to the bank to see her CDs. And so my mom is flipping through her CDs gleefully. And Lori's a novelist, and she's like snooping around here and see what all this stuff is. And Lori goes, "Hey, look at this. I found your adoption papers. You were 21 years old."
Oh, your name change papers.
My mom didn't adopt us when we were
Your
12.
name change papers.
What?
Your name change.
Our name change papers. Yes, she changed our name the night before I turned 21, legally. She never bothered it. And then I thought, wow, Leanie and I, we had passports, we had social security cards. She talked everyone into it, but our name was never legally changed. So, yeah, I have one final thing in the book here, in this section of the book, where I say to Lori, it breaks frame, and I say, it's all water under the bridge, I sighed. And then Lori said, "Yes, Hershey, but you're still standing on that bridge." So that's how the chapter ends. So there's your answer, Susan, is the sorrow, it backs into the sorrow of this story and our basically losing our father through this craziness of both of them. My sister loves the word "zoozwing," which I put into the book for her sake. It's called a favorite word. It means the same thing in life as it does in chess. You have to make a move, but every move makes your situation worse. That's what we were in.
We have time for just one more question, and I see it right over here.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Sheila's friend, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Nice to meet
I've
you.
heard a lot about you.
I heard a lot about you, too. All good. When you started writing this book, did you think it was going to change you at all? And now that you're done with it, has it changed you?
That's a really good question.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, he said, when I started writing this book, did I think it would change me? And has it changed me?
Wow, great question.
I definitely did not think it would change me, and if it did, I wouldn't have done it. So for sure, I didn't want to do that.
Well, you're probably proud of things that were hurtful before. There's no way not to take pride. There's no way not to take pride in what you've accomplished here. And all that pain turned into celebration and pride.
I do feel a certain joy that I was able to access so much of what had happened to me that I hadn't been able to write about ever before, and I'm getting late in life, so you want to use what you got. You want to leave everything on the table, and you only are given so much experience, and you want to be able to use it, and it had somehow been inaccessible to me, and so it was very moving to me to be able to get it right or try to get it right and find a way to handle it, I guess, or process it or think about it. But the ways in which it will have changed me, I'm not sure about that. An early review, which is very positive, says that it's the least inward-looking memoir you could imagine. It's very positive about this, but it's totally outward in the sense and in the way it's paced and how it's focused on individual people and community and creating a world. So in a lot of books, novels especially, but memoirs, there's a kind of journey of discovery that's part of the process of the book. And I would say that's not I think I discovered a lot, but the narrator of a hero often of a book comes to some tremendous realizations about themselves, and I would say no, but about that I can't claim that. But what I can claim is that I never thought there's several keys here. One is, I have a fortune cookie, and it says, my fortune cookie was preposterous. someday you will look back fondly on the past. And then the other thing is that Abraham Lincoln said that the place he grew up in, Indiana, was the most unpoetical spot on earth. And I said he'd never been to Skokie. And so I feel really happy and excited that I was able to capture this world. And that's kind of opening up to something in your identity and some recognition about yourself and where you come from. And I've liked one thing in a review that said, it made one of my jokes from, I think I was saying I was in kindergarten and I got sent home from school for being bad, and I said to my grandmother, "What's the most spoiled sandwich in kindergarten?" "A bratwurst." And they said, "He's still that guy." And I kind of like that. I kind of like that he's still that kind of guy. He's still that guy. So I guess that would be to stay true to yourself and to recognize and to get down the life you've had, this world now gone. That was meaningful to me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.